We're on, everybody. Welcome and welcome everybody. Welcome to the June meeting of the Mangawhai Community Park Governance Operations. We will start the day with apologies. We've got no apologies received as of today, as of yesterday. So we'll move to item 1.3 on the agenda. Confirmation of the agenda. I'll move. May I have a seconder? Thank you, Rachel. So, conflicts of interest.
Need to vote, don't we?
Oh, we just need, yeah. All those in favour, please say aye. Sorry about that. Committee members are reminded of the need to be vigilant to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role as committee members and any private or other external interests they might have. Do we have any conflicts to declare? No. All good. Confirmation of the minutes, committee meetings of 18th of February. I wasn't here. Councillor Rachel kindly stepped in as chair, so I thank you for that, Rachel. Can we have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Mary Ann and Rachel. Okay, so we move that the Mangawhai Community Park Governance Committee confirms minutes of the meeting held for 18th of February as a true and accurate record. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. So we move to the agenda for today, the Community Park Governance Operations Update 2025. We have a mover. I'll move. Second up. Thank you, Mary Ann. So Jenny's over there. I'll ask you and Glynis to come and present our report. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. We'll take it as read, the report. There was just some questions that came through to Glynis and myself from Councillor Williams. One of them was around the naming of the Jim Wintle Memorial Park. Just wanted to say that staff will take directive from the Governance Committee today and from that outcome look at what's the processes and also the costs involved if that was to happen. So yeah, if there's any other questions we have been doing a lot of work with the young people around the bike tracks, and we highlighted that in the report.
Come back to that one.
So if you've got any questions around that or any of the licence to occupy issues, then you can talk to me, and then the rest of it is.
And I'll just give a quick summary through the chair if I can, just in terms of the operational component. We are still working really hard to try and get a good return on our investment with our contractor that does work in the Mangawhai Community Park. And we are reviewing all work that they're doing in there and really looking to consolidate it. At this stage, that what we're really looking at is that they will maintain the area of the shared path that goes through the park to its natural sort of boundary, so to where the swale is. And really look at getting another provider that can go in and look after pest plants and do that kind of ongoing maintenance. And there's two smaller sections that require mowing. So we'll be looking at a contractor doing those two smaller sections. It's called Zone 4 and Zone 14, and looking at the shed and then looking at that shared path. So we are working through that at the moment. We're going through a notice to contract to our contractor. So we've had quite a bit of toing and froing on that. I just wanted to respond. We had a couple of questions that came through. One is about the Flying Fox and about where it's looking to be moved to. It's not a big move. It's just taking the end pole and moving it ever so slightly, which will take the orientation. At the moment, it sits very close to that embankment. And what I do know is that water is coming from above, coming down. It's hitting that shared path. And instead of being diverted to where we want the water to go, actually it's coming across the shared path and is gouging out that embankment. So we have talked a lot about retaining walls, and we've talked about all different variations of retaining walls. I think that we've landed on the very best approach, and that is that we'll put some netting, some technical netting, not won't be geo something. Netting. Geotech netting, yep. What we'll do is we'll fill it up with mulch, which we happen to have quite a bit of from the tornado still. And from there you can plant into it. That's a relatively low cost approach, which is a great outcome. But what we really need to do is get that water from continuing to go down there. And because that flying fox is sitting so close, what's happening at the moment is that the trees are coming out and they're starting to get ever so close to where people are roaring down.
Yep.
And I'm really mindful that if you start to cut those trees down, we're going to start to...
Loose bank.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just looking at taking that end pole and moving it ever so slightly. There are some other considerations because it has a guy wire that sits to hold it. And of course, the moment you start to move that pole, actually you're now putting a great big trip hazard. And because that's in an area that the big wire that will come out the back end of the pole sits very closely to the basketball court. So I'm just mindful that we don't make one hazard into a new hazard. So we have been trying to work through with a contractor. It's very hard to get contractors at the moment. Everybody's got the same experience, all coming up to the end of the financial year. Trying to get somebody to come and do what you need them to do is horrifically hard. But we are really mindful of time and the likes. The other one that we are, again, looking at the concreting, we're looking at doing some concreting, not the entire piece, but for the car park in front of the Maz Cafe. We originally looked at this and we had a contractor all lined up and they were going to asphalt a 2-metre sort of section between the road end and into the car park. And then they were going to re-gravel and make good the car park. The more you get to know about these things, the more you start to realise that actually that has a limited lifespan.
Yep.
So we are now looking at doing a concrete section and actually working with the community team and see if they've got a little bit of funding so we can actually concrete a little bit further in. So we've got a local contractor that's going to give us some costings on that. And again, we're going to try and get that done. I know that that car park's in a terrible state and will continue to be so until we can do something, you know, a lot more sort of permanent. The cost of concreting the whole thing is really cost prohibitive. Yeah, that's right. And but the problem is that our contractor that was originally going to do it with asphalt only had access to asphalt for a short period of time and subsequently hasn't. And then that's pushed the cost up. So now we're looking at something, can we in fact do something that's a lot more and a lot more sustainable?
Because they've just done the asphalt at the club and the car park. Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we could have tacked on to the end of that, because we could have talked to Alan, I'm sure they would have.
Yeah.
So the advice that I've received from our roading team is that because of where it is, and because you're coming off the road onto it, and we were looking at, yeah, that's right, that actually it wasn't going to be long lasting. That actually we would be much better off if we could to actually look at putting concrete down there.
How big is the slab that you want to do?
So we're looking at about 2 metres and potentially if we're able to, maybe even that tiny little bit more, the more that we put in and the more that it can be sloped and we can take that water and put it into the existing drains, the better off that is going to be in the longer term.
So if I may ask, Glynis, when you say 2 metres, is that 2 metres off the road edge and then 2 metre nib all around that park?
Well, that's what we're going to go and explore now in terms of what monies have we got and what monies could we perhaps
Beg and borrow.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more that you concrete it in that space, the better that's going to be. But I do hear what you're saying. We are wanting to try and channel the water that's currently sitting and pooling and get it into those drains.
That's right.
Yeah.
Who's the concrete guy that you've got?
So we've had, actually, I'll just pass it over to my colleague in Orange.
Fans who did the other part, the Mez car park, and also Cody Post.
Okay.
Oh, good.
The only reason I asked, I say, is they're concreting shortly where the garage is going to be.
Oh, okay.
They pick up.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Shane Cullen has the contract for that, and he's using Dancrete.
Is it,
They'll be doing that, you could possibly
Right there.
get them to come down and do it with an overflow. If you-
It's originally, Shane, that we approached.
Okay.
And this was meant to be, we were going to do this prior to Christmas last year.
yeah,
Prior to Christmas last year, but it was during the summer peak. So we put it off a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once we went back to him and said, hey, can we do this now? Unfortunately, at that point, he didn't have any asphalt.
Yeah.
And we've just not been able to get hold of him since.
Oh, okay, because I the only reason I asked because I was talking to the concreter yesterday.
Okay,
He's saying that while he has a contract for the whole job,
yeah,
he's got Dancrete, which is a concrete
Mhm.
guys to do the concreting in
thank
there
you.
for the tanks and stuff like that, so.
Okay, well, we'll go and chase that up.
Yeah, they'll be doing that shortly, and if you can get a hold of them, they could box it and have it ready to go, just that concreted one.
Yeah, oh,
Go.
completely. Yeah, no, completely. The more that we can dovetail into somebody else's work, no, that's fantastic, you know.
And Dan's pretty good, he's,
Dan Creech, did you say?
Thank
Dan Crete, yeah, Dan, I've got his number if you want, Dan Scott is the guy that,
Okay.
it could be because, I mean, I'm trying to be a bit practical here, but I just, no, in that car park, it's quite tight, the
Yeah.
parking up the top end. So it's almost like, is that if you don't concrete all of part of it, you're going to get it ripped up by turning, because it's quite tight turning.
that's what we're, yeah, that's what they want to.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So look, when I spoke to Shane Cullen about it last year, what he did say was that he was going to grade it, he was going to put an appropriate level of pap, you know, the chunks on it. That what had been put on there previously was a little bit too big and too coarse.
Yep.
And so it was moving very quickly. And when I spoke to, when he was going to do that work, he was going to look at coming back and kind of making sure that it wasn't moving. Yeah, so there'd be a little bit of ongoing maintenance to that. So because we're now looking at doing a concrete part, just give me a tiny bit of time and I will work through it and try and find the very best option that we can.
Yeah, because if you even Shane would know, but Dan, if you get him to look at it, you're talking about 2 meters, but he might recommend a little bit more to bevel it.
Yeah.
And he would be able to do that and give you the advice on where you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly could take it, but if they couldn't, he'll just do it as a separate one for you, but he's pretty good.
That's fantastic to know. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
It's already there and all of that.
Yeah, if they're there, you can take
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Could be-
Okay, that's good to know, because it's a question that comes up about the Mads car park, so
Yes, and it's in a shocking state. We
Yep.
all agree that something needs to be done.
you'll come back to us on that, that's cool. Are there any other questions anybody has on this item?
I did have one more
You did
question,
have one more?
if I may. It was just on the palm lifting. Is that
Oh, yes.
main?
So that's actually getting done. So it is in the main, yes, it is, and it's getting done today. And that's in the main part of the car park.
So that's like where you've got the plantings.
That's right. So it's those Washington palms and also the Phoenix palms.
So they're all coming out.
No, they're not coming out. They're being trimmed.
Oh, is that what it means? Lifting?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you,
No.
all right.
No, we're not. It just means that you take all the bottom bits that are all straggly and lift it up a little bit higher.
Oh, okay, yes,
Thanks
I
for
wondered.
clarifying that, yeah.
Mr Chairman, because Phoenix palms are noxious weeds.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they were being removed altogether, but certainly they're very dangerous.
Yes, I think it-
Oh, the prongs, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got that. Okay, I have a query. I've had a letter that councillor H has at the moment. I'll share it with you, Dennis. Is it from Anne Neal? I think it is, from Paroa Trust.
Oh, yes.
And just, yeah, thanks. Just really talking about their involvement and can we facilitate them and help them out there as they go about their business. Now, I've mentioned this to Jenny and I liken this to what we've done with roading in the council, where we've got our main contract and that's all good. But what they're asked to do is take cognizance of local contractors and use them. So I see Paroa, along with the trackies, as two examples of what we can do there. And we do have some areas, as you've said in here, that aren't allocated specifically to Downer. And you're just working through that. So I just think that if we're all happy with Paroa Trust, because their primary function is weeding and noxious pests, you know.
We do have them. They are actually doing quite a bit of work at the moment, up, how would I describe it as?
Like the bowls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Down,
Yeah.
yep,
That's right. So we have been working quite closely with them. They do spread out across the kind of the greater Mangawhai area. Whether or not we could use them commercially, there are some difficulties in that space. They work in behalf of NRC, and then they're a volunteer group.
exactly.
And so there's some health and safety components that we would definitely need to work through.
She's referenced that there. I may raise it and just, you know, leave it with you, see if we can, because the principle of working with local people alongside our main contractor is good, and it's certainly worked
Yes.
for the roading.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're certainly not close to that. And as I said, I'm trying to pave the way to make sure that we are really getting a good return on our investment in terms of our relationship with our contractor at Mangawhai Community Park.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I can see that there's areas that are not working. So it would be really good to be able to target those to specialists. And, you know, the specialist knowledge is really in the community. So
Yes.
we are looking to do that.
So my extension to that was, I was going to write a note about this, but I thought, oh, well, I can raise it on the day. You got area 1, which is in blue, and it is designated as wetlands, which really cuts at the craw, you know, because it's, if we could say it, but there are those that are around that will say it is wetland, but it's not. It's all fed from the overflow off the new car park, the car park at the club. So I don't know whether we want to leave that as a designation as wetland, but two, it's the sort of work that needs to be done, and it's good to know that Paroa are working in there. So that was my main point about that one, for what it's worth.
Yep.
Anybody has any comments?
I've just got to do the question. If that's all right.
Yep.
Were you going to respond or?
I was just going to, the chair, yes, I did check that around the wetland yesterday. It is identified as a wetland by NRC, so I checked with our resource consent people, and they said that if you were going to change the designation of a wetland, you need to do that through NRC, and there's a process, and Kelsey could tell you about what you'd need to do, but it is a protected wetland, and it has been identified in the ecological study of the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just be aware.
Look, I mean, I think that looking forward, we all know that the conversation's out there about putting in ultimately potentially a council building, but that would be, I think what I read is area 2. You're right? Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
2. So at least that's not designated as wetland.
and
And
through the chair, there is some work, I made mention of that on page 3 in terms of ordered work. There is some work that's being designated to improve the drainage in zone 1 and 2.
Yep.
Just as you said, that's where there is some pipe work that's coming in from above. And it's looking and making sure that that water is flowing to the designated areas appropriately. Yeah, so that work is scheduled. And I was hoping to dovetail that work that's going to be done with what will need to also be done at that retaining wall with the flying foxes.
Are you?
So to try and do that work at the same time. Again, just making sure that
That's cool.
water that is in that area is going to the designated areas. Yeah.
So is it likely that ultimately you'd have that as part of the ordered works would flow down, as I'm looking at it, to the right-hand side, closest to the bush, the right-hand side of the shared path, down to the new drainage?
Look, I'm not a waters expert, but the waters team have suggested that what they'd be looking at is just making sure that the water that is not flowing where it should do at the moment will go to the scruffy domes. So the areas that have been determined to take water in a particular direction and out to stormwater, that'll work more effectively.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, that's fine. Any other, Mary Ann?
Rachel and I both.
I did, thank you.
Yep.
Really, again, it was just touching on what our contractors are responsible for in the areas and then other groups. I just wanted to raise that in the local Mangawhai focus, that there is a story in there about the Sunday, first Sunday of every month clean-up, how that's going to now be extended to some, community members being able to weed whack and do some other things as well for the maintenance of the Maz area. So I just think, again, that kind of is a crossover that we might just need to talk to Maz committee about and just understand, have they got a plan for where that work's going to occur? So we're not doubling up or
Absolutely.
actors are going there and it's already done and they're confused. I just wanted to raise it. I think a brilliant idea, but we just need to manage it so we're all on the same page of what's happening.
That's all managed by Ian. I can't think of a surname.
Yeah.
If they can, yeah.
And that's broader than Maz. I mean, it used to start at the tavern and now it's shifted to there. So it's not just Maz, it's the whole area.
Oh, they're
Cleaning up around the rubbish shop.
The rubbish here,
street side.
but what they're doing now is they're increasing that to be able to do the extra work. So it's just so we don't have crossovers with the
I agree,
contractor.
really important.
And there certainly are some health and safety ramifications associated with that. When you have volunteer groups, it is on council land. So we do need to have some oversight and we do need to make sure that they're managing those health and safety risks in a way that's really appropriate. So, it is a tension and, it is something that we do need to just get way through.
Mr. Chairman, just in relation to that, one of the things that I've thought would be very helpful is at least once a year to have a forum about health and safety, just for community members and particularly for some of the people that are leading some of those projects, just so that they're clear about what's required, because not everyone understands. Obviously, some people have got a very sound understanding, but the more people that understand and, feel that they've heard from you and know what resources are available. And we've also got support from people that are willing to, give high-vis jackets and gloves and all those sorts of things.
Well,
I just think a forum once a year that would be open to community would be helpful.
It just keeps it front of mind for everybody, I think, that are going to be doing any works in there. I think once you start having the, community members, which is great, doing the grounds and weed whack, we just need to be mindful it is a park where children, animals are there to enjoy. So it's kind of like we still need to section off areas just so that we don't have any crossover of people enjoying the park and somebody getting injured, which wouldn't be good.
That just comes back to your duty of care.
It does.
Yeah.
That's right.
You guys then council have, obviously, because it's council land, have that responsibility, so.
And so do the leaders of any of the community groups as well. So it's just really pulling that together.
well,
Yeah.
I'd ask Glynis and Jenny, what their thoughts are on that and, because it would have to be ordained and run through council. I mean,
We need to have some oversight on it, absolutely.
Yeah.
And certainly we can run workshops and we've got a really good health and safety team who work really closely with our community groups to make sure that they have the tools and they coach them through, what is health and safety in 2025? It's, often people have a misconception about really what are you being asked. But just as you've said, it's about making sure that when people are doing work, that they are safe themselves and that they're not going to cause an unsafe environment for other people who might be enjoying that park. And I have a concern. We need to again make sure that whoever we've got working there that we've contracted in, isn't doing anything that inadvertently then causes harm for a community group to come in. So I wouldn't like to have a situation where we've just sprayed and then I've got people going in and hand pulling.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's the oversight that we need.
Very much so.
I didn't see in the latest edition, I didn't get to read through it all, but I'm not too sure when that's going to start.
We'll follow that up.
Yep.
And we'll follow that up straight away. Again, it's fantastic to work with the community and we're not trying to ever put a barrier in for the community. But obviously we have some commercial sensitivities with our contractor, particularly at Mangawhai Community Park. And again, we are ultimately the land owner of that park. And so we do have a very high duty of care for park users and for anyone that's going there to do any work.
Yep.
And I think, health and safety is a moving thing all the time, changes that are coming through with, you have all the other, like you have government agents like WorkSafe that are always involved with it. And I think the responsibility is always going to come back to council, like you said, because you own the land. So your contractors need to be aware of council's health and safety.
That's right.
And so.
And the volunteers.
Yeah, and the volunteers as well, because responsibilities and like that, and if something goes wrong, they're all going to point the finger back at you guys.
Yeah.
You're gonna be, they need to be aware of their responsibilities under your
Absolutely.
act.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. So, no, that's good. A very good point. And that's something to work on moving forward, and we're in your hands for that. I think that perhaps before we stand you both down, we should have a conversation about the naming of the power. Marianne, you had another.
Well, yes, I just finished on the, in the report, it talks about contract for services from the Tracks Trust and Paroa Conservation Trust. And it's headed a contract for services. In my understanding, I'm not quite sure what we mean by contract for services. So I'm not sure that any money changes hands. I'm just looking at the,
Page 9.
Okay.
yes, page 9, bottom of page 9, contract for services.
So through the chair, if I could expand on that.
Thank you.
So when we have community groups, we do have what's called a contract for service, and that just outlines what are they going to be doing? But this is again about this oversight. What are they going to be doing? And then what are the health and safety responsibilities and duties that both parties have? We call it a contract for service. It could be called an agreement, but that's traditionally what we've called it. It sometimes involves money and often it doesn't involve money. So for the one for Paroa Trust, we've been trying to work through that for many months and met with quite a bit of resistance. But in order to have groups doing work at the park and actually across Mangawhai on public land, we do need to have some form of agreement so that we're
Absolutely.
to report
Absolutely.
health and safety, to let us know what they're doing, to let us know where they're going to be.
Absolutely.
And we call that a contract for service.
That was one
So-
of the things,
Yeah.
you come straight back to your duty of care
Yeah.
and health and safety straight away.
Absolutely. And so that's how we frame it.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And that's,
So I think it would be very, I mean, I'd be interested to see both of those. I think that would be very good. And that's,
they're the ones that I mentioned earlier on, the trackies and Paroa as being as local contractors and being involved in the process. But, that's pretty much up to the team.
I
How we go.
we can go over that with you at some point. I mean, obviously, once we're in public money, anything that's already agreed, particularly with community groups, isn't commercially sensible.
No, and on these particular cases, there's no money that transacts.
No.
It's really an agreement. Yeah, it's an agreement in terms of what they're going to be doing, where they'll be doing it and when, and then the health and safety component. So we do ask all of the groups that we work with under any type of license or an agreement is to provide us information about health and safety.
Yeah.
Has anything happened over the...
Expect.
Yeah, that's right.
And my understanding is that Paroa Trust is doing almost nothing at all in the community parks, except a little bit around where the lookout used to be.
They're doing up a
Very
little
small
very
growth, but
good.
not really.
bit around, yeah.
Through the chair, just quickly, with Marianne request, we can give you an actual template of the contract for service, but it would be permission from the actual individual organisations. We can't give you a copy of their contract for service.
Well, I'd have thought it is of interest to the governance group and we're dealing with public money and public concern. And just like Phil's saying, we all have the same concern that we're enabling safe.
So I can talk to that because it comes under privacy, so I have to deal with that every day.
Yeah.
With job with contracts, because I contract one with the country.
And I've obviously had a little bit of
Yeah,
experience
and
in
that's
publicly funded
what Jenny's
contracts as
saying,
well.
because you have the other party in there, it becomes what's called sensitive, case sensitive, and because there's information about them potentially in there, which is why they won't release it without permission from that.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's
Yes,
just-
it's, yeah.
Well, we're going to table this letter from Anne Neil and, I'm happy to leave it now in the hands of the staff and we know the intent of where we'd like to go and to make it work as much as we can. The last question that I have in this area is on the naming. The involvement of the esteemed Mr. Jim Wintle in any naming. So yeah, it may not be, any questions, any thoughts from members of the team on that?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wondered if anyone knew where we were at with actually contacting his family about the idea, or where had it gone from the
Yeah, I
friends?
have certainly spoken to his wife and Andrew, son.
And was that a positive reaction?
Oh, very positive, very positive. And one of the things that Andrew said was that it would be really, he felt it would be really important in encouraging the broader family to, feel some responsibility, give some time, feel some inspiration, really. Very positive indeed.
I think,
I was just going to say, because obviously it feeds into what Kenny has already said as well about how we actually would go about with consultation, or what the actual process would be, and the cost too that would need to come back to us as the governance committee.
And to be clear, I haven't, on behalf of friends, written, because I rang the property manager just to ask if there was a process. My quick search indicated that possibly it's a petition with at least 20 signatures and a suggestion for the consideration of the council.
I think you need to engage with the chief executive as well, because it's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and when they are to get the formal response from him, I'll
Absolutely.
imagine that's what we would know.
Yeah, absolutely.
but I think that we probably need to give some guidance to the staff about what we think, because I know that there is some thoughts about the whole park, and he was deeply involved in the formation of that, but he was also more specifically involved in the historic village museum area. So, the matter of, do we look upon one area, because it's going to impact us in signage, whatever we do. And probably it's easier if it did happen to encompass the whole park, rather than try and break out segments, because there is that influence. That would be my thought.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just add to that, I think I was thinking about it this morning, and it's while we've got the broader park as Mangawhai Community Park, like what you've touched on, Councillor Howard, the historic village area, the Deering, the museum, all of that was he was more involved in that towards later on.
Yep.
And I just wondered whether you would, rather than possibly renaming the whole park, because it has that connection with Mangawhai Community Park for visitors, and that it could perhaps be that you have one area called the Jim Wintle Historic Park or something like that. I'm just putting ideas out there rather than I just wonder if we would have to have a broader consultation with the whole community to be able to rename the whole park. So I'm just looking at other ways that we can, have his name there and respect what he's done over many, many years, just maybe in a different form. So that was just what I wanted to put out there as what I've been thinking about.
Yep.
Well, my view, having observed the context over the last 40 years, and recognising that he actually, he was certainly one of the founders of the Golf Club. There's not much he has not been involved in. And in terms of, so in my view, it wasn't inappropriate when it was a serious proposal at the Friends meeting and there was no discussion, unanimous agreement, and that was quite telling, I think.
Yep.
And in terms of signage, it's complicated because the Wintle family name is so widely known, and this is pretty specific to him. But it seemed to me that the signage would be, instead of calling it, it would just put Mangawhai at the bottom and Jim Wintle in the community park, like it could be pasted over, as you can do with some of the signs.
Yeah, look, I take your point that, at Friends, it was unanimous. And there is no doubt that, I think that it's a fair summation to have his name engaged. I think that perhaps that's the lead that we provide to staff from this group, that in principle, well, we can vote on it. Do we all agree in principle that it's agreed that we involve? We would be happy to support the motion of having Jim Whittle's name involved in the park. A matter of how and what extent will ultimately come back to council, and we'll have to do the consultation. I don't know about going out to the community and asking what they want, but we come up with a specific opportunity. My preference, I have to say, my preference is across the park. And, I don't know whether you would include the word memorial as, so Jim Wintle Memorial Community Park, whether you need to do that or just leave it as the name. But I think that will ultimately is a lead that we provide for staff.
And then you could come back with options.
Yes, just in my view, memorial wouldn't add anything, I don't think. And if you look around the country at parks, names are often associated. But it doesn't need the word memorial, I wouldn't have thought.
Yes.
I don't know that we need to have a vote or anything on that, because it's not a motion as such.
Directing us.
All right,
Against Mangawhai Park, it will be right into the chief executive.
Yep.
And we haven't had any advice on
well,
kind of format, so we'll use what we've
staff will come back
on
with
our research.
recommendations and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
I mean, I suspect that our view, I'm going to say this later on, we're probably aiming at less of these meetings than others, so we want to make it as straightforward as possible. Okay, so any further questions on anything in the papers? So we'll let the staff stand down. Thank you very much. So I'll just say,
Mr. Chair, we didn't actually go through the risk.
no, we've got to come to that.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yep, separate item. So, look, I think that we've got good coverage on all of the issues, and it's all detailed here. The maintenance is focused, which is what we've wanted to get on top of for quite some time with the park, and to make it look as appealing as it can be at any one time. We've got some things moving, the Mayor's Car Park, the renaming. So to me, we're in good space with this, and we haven't utilised by any means our full budget. So that's all good. We got $155,000 and we've spent about 104, I think, 100, yeah. And the additional work is detailed there quite clearly. So that's it. So seconder was Marianne. Any comments?
No.
All right. So any other members wish to speak?
I'd just like to thank the staff for putting the reports together for us.
Good. Yes,
And particularly appreciate the work on the bike racks.
Yes, that's certainly been done through Jenny's team.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
They're right, I think that's good. And working with the kids, having found them is a big thing, and work with the kids to come up with a concept, so that they understand now about coming up with a concept not them rushing ahead and doing it themselves.
Through the chair on that, I'd like is really highlighting health and safety, highlighting that they can't just build things. It's been fantastic, so they're really on what it look like. We're really getting Sadie from Party Park to come in. She's conduct games.
Yep.
So, yeah, being able to explain to them, this is what's involved. These are the type of people. So then we come back to you, like looking at where the appropriate area, because right now, where that. So,
Really good.
That's great. Okay, so I've got nothing further to add. I think we've covered all that. So the recommendation is there that we note the operations and project team update June 2025. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passed. Right, so we move on to the Mangawhai Community Park Committee Risk Update, June 25. Have a mover?
Yes.
Mary Ann will move, I'll second. So welcome back, Glynis.
Thank you.
Short respite.
Yes, absolutely. Through the chair, I'll take it that this report has been read. And certainly if you have any questions about any of the items, I can certainly try and provide more context for you.
Any questions from members?
We did sort of answer one that came through from Councillor Williams, and that was to do with the car park. If I can provide any more detail, perhaps you have a different question.
I did have a different question. Thank you, Glynis. It was just on the wear and tear of the public toilets. Is there, I saw somewhere there was some work coming up to do with the public toilets. I just wondered what that might be, or is it to be the TBC side?
So we have a maintenance regime, so our contractor comes through and obviously cleans, but that we also have an ongoing maintenance of all of our public toilets across the Kaipara district. My understanding is, I'm not aware of something specific.
Laws.
That's right.
About those, but we had them assessed and they're all in really good order. They've just got a slight sort of staining to them, so it was whether we spent I think it was about $500,000 to resurface them, and they have to be done by a specific contractor.
Okay,
But they won't.
I saw in the previous report.
Yeah, but that won't provide any additional sort of value. One thing that we did do many moons ago, we were going to put coat hooks in all of our public toilets, and for some reason that seemed to have stopped. So our contractor had purchased the hooks, and one of the things that you've all noticed when you go into the toilets all around the Kaipara is actually there is now somewhere that you can hang your bag or your coat.
Brilliant.
Which I think is a really good.
Yeah.
That's
Much more user friendly.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's quite good to hang everything up high.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
I did have a question, Glynis, on that item. Excuse me,
Bless you.
vandalism. Are we seeing much of this?
We're certainly seeing it on the west coast at the moment, certainly in the west. Look, it is an ongoing issue. We do, if we get reported of it, we try and act on it very quickly and get that removed. We do have, again, if we're talking about, say, public toilets, we've got our contractor out there often several times a day, so they are definitely monitoring depending on what season we're in. Look, it's something that does occur. When we hear about it, we do try and deal to it as quickly as we can.
Oh, very good. And the other element I had here was going way back to Bowler. No, not Bowler, not that far. Gabriel, we had immense numbers of trees that were down beside the tracks and all the way through the park. Have some of them been removed as part of the process, or have they just simply rotted down and been covered up by, amongst other things,
A little bit of both. If trees have come down in an area where it doesn't pose any human harm to someone, so it's not on a walking track, it's in a bush area and it can naturally just compost away and go back into the soil, we don't pull those out. But just with the tornado that we had recently, a lot of damage just up in the little reserve that's just up in here. Again, where we can put it out to the side and it's not obscuring the park, the pathway, then actually we'll just let that to rot down. Where it's causing human nuisance or harm, then we get those removed.
Okay, that's cool. Any other questions on the risks? No, thank you, Glynis.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, you moved, so
Yep, just
move a statement.
again, thank the staff, yeah.
You're all okay, that's fine. And second, I've got nothing further to add. So anybody else have any comments? No? Move a statement again? No?
Thank you very much to staff.
Thank you. We'll move that the Mangawhai Community Park Governance Committee notes the risk update 2025. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed. And with that, I'll call to an end. Sorry,
Is this the last one before the election, the last meeting?
yep, no, there's one more?
One more.
August. Yep. Yeah, we don't go yet.
No, I mean, the only reason I asked was I just wanted